All right. Hi, Susan. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you, Douglas. How are you doing today?
Oh, very well. Thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
I'm delighted to be here.
So, you're an author, editor, book coach. I had this conversation with somebody else who was a book coach, and I wasn't quite sure what a book coach did. They gave me one definition. Why don't you give me one? And we'll see how they
Sure.
compare.
Oh, how interesting. I'd love to know what the other definition was, too. That would be very interesting. But how I work as a book coach is really in the field of helping people get their book written. And that help may come in the form of some mindset assistance. We all have some difficulties with that first book. I know for me, my first book took 13 years to write, and that's a long time, but a lot of that was about my sense of who I was. So, working as a book coach, I help people get over their mind trash, really, is what it comes down to, and at least move into the realm of becoming an author. And then there's some practical things too, like how do you structure a book and how do you find the motivation to keep going, and what about what goes in the book and what doesn't go in the book. So it's really an all-round assistant to help people get the book written in whatever they need.
Well, that's pretty close to, I think, what he said. I kind of equated a book coach to like a personal trainer who would sit behind you at the desk while you're, come on, you can get that last paragraph. Let's go. Let's do it. Come on. And throwing water on you if you stop writing.
Yeah, there's the fear aspect of it too, Douglas. It's so funny you say that because I was working with a client this morning and I got a batch of written material from her last night, and she knew she was working with me this morning, and so all weekend she got really busy writing, knowing that she was going to be meeting with me today. So it's kind of like that, oh gee, I've got to get this done, that accountability person too, which is kind of fun.
Well, it is. And it also is a good motivator. I think that some people, particularly creatives, and I consider myself one of those, we do tend to be the masters of procrastination. When you're dealing with something that you're very passionate about, like writing, or in my case, it's music, you still procrastinate it, even though you love doing it. And so anything we hate doing, forget about it. It just doesn't get done half the time. You got to have a good partner who can pick up the parts that you don't want to do so you can concentrate on something else. But why are we so prone to procrastination, creative people? Why do you suppose that is?
I have a lot of theories about that. I'm not sure I have the real truth about it. I know that a lot of the people that I work with are highly conceptual people and highly creative, and they love the act of creation in here. And when it comes time to bringing it out from here to the printed page, it's that's not their brilliance. That's not their happy place to play. They love thinking about it, and they love developing ideas intellectually, but the expression of them is not their favorite thing. So I think a lot of my clients do procrastinate because it's not fun for them, to be honest. It's not their favorite thing. And it's a lot of work. You know, not everybody who's a big creator is also a really comfortable writer. And that writing skill set often gets in the way for people as well. That, wow, you know, they may have been told by their grade 4 teacher that they were a terrible writer, and they've carried that along with them their whole lives. So again, back to that mind trash is quite often they're not bad writers, but they think they are. And so there's a certain amount of shame maybe around the act of writing. What if it's not good enough? And that's, again, as a book coach, that's one of the things that I work with people to try and get over, because quite often their writing isn't that bad.
So it's the self-confidence issue that comes
Yeah,
up
huge.
probably a lot, Well, I think that that's very valid. And, there are people that have an amazing amount of creativity going on in their head, but they need someone like you to come in and help organize it. I think that that's probably a good way to explain what it is you do, yeah?
Yeah, I think you're right. Creativity is very messy.
Yeah, it is messy,
And
yeah.
Yeah, creativity is messy. What's that old saying? You can't make an omelet unless you break some eggs and scramble them all up again. And I think that's very much what writing a book can be like, is ideas here, ideas there. You've got these ideas all over the place. Well, where do they all go? And yeah, that's an important part of getting the book written, is putting them in a place. If you're a creative person and you have all these beautiful ideas, brilliant ideas circulating in your airspace, your reader can't access those ideas unless you put them into a form that the reader is going to be able to consume them. And reading is a very linear process. It's not a creative process. And I think that's where there's a bit of a disconnect as well, is this whole idea of, okay, we have to package the ideas and the thoughts that the creator has in ways that will serve the reader. And that's why it takes a team sometimes to write a book, because that's what a book coach does, is help with that packaging of ideas.
I think that's a nice way to put it, a packaging of ideas. Very good. Let's move on a little bit and let's talk about your book. Your book is called Your Personal Marketing Playbook: The Art of Creating Social Capital On and Offline. I like the subtitle, and I want to get into that just a little bit. When you're talking about social capital, does that mean networking with people, sort of gathering people to your side, to your social media account, followers, etc.? Is that what you're referring to, or no?
Yes and no. It goes a little bit deeper than that. This was my 5th book, actually, and I co-authored it with a referral marketing expert, Paula Hope, her name is, and she is really about creating a deep network, not necessarily just social media, but getting to know the people in your network and getting to know what they need and looking at how you can collaborate, but doing that in an organized way, so that it's not just a hit or miss, hey, can you support my event? But it's, okay, what are your events this year and how can I support you? And here are my events, and let's see how we can support each other in a relationship, rather than kind of a superficial kind of a exchange. And so that was really what the book's about. Paula has created the sensibility around what is a referral network and how do you leverage your referral network for business. I have a long history as a content marketing consultant, and so that's the piece that I contributed was, well, okay, how do you take your online content and support the members of your referral network with your online content? And so it's a bit of an unusual book. We had a lot of fun writing it. And I feel that it was probably we did very well with sales on that one when it first came out. So I think it was a pretty helpful target audience and helpful information for them.
Can this apply to all businesses?
Definitely. Yeah, referral marketing is not something that's taught in universities and colleges, for example. That's one thing that really came through for me. I didn't learn how to build a referral marketing network when I was coming into business for the first time. I think most professional service providers, like lawyers and accountants and so on, they get some training as they're coming up through their business. Maybe there's one lesson on it in their professional training, but it's not something that's really focused on as something that's really valuable for life. And that was really one of the things we wanted to address, was whatever business you're in, you really want to take a look at your referral network and make sure that you are cultivating it nicely. And by cultivating, I don't mean, transactionally looking for what you can get out of the people in your network, but how can there be a productive and fruitful and fulfilling exchange between you so that you're supporting each other and growing together in your business as time goes on.
Okay, let's break this down just a little bit. So when you say referral marketing, these are going to be people, customers. If I have a business, my referrals are my customers?
Could be. They could be your friends. They could be family members. They could be people you went to college with. They could be people that you've been a supplier for in the past, or they've been a supplier for you. It's almost anybody that you know. And what our book does is that it invites people to make a list of the people they know relatively well, This, we're not talking about your email list of 5,000 people, but the people that you are in an ongoing exchange with. And then you classify the people you know into one of three categories. The people that you could count on in a pinch to do almost anything for you. And usually there are not a whole lot of people in that category. But for example, if I were to have been fallen ill today, I know I could call my friend Simone and she'd drop whatever she was doing to come and fill in for me today. That's the kind of ask that you can make of people in that first category. But then you have other people in your network, and you might want to list those people out as well, where, you wouldn't make that big of an ask, but you can count on them for some things. So I have people in my network who I really care about and who I have a real relationship with, who I might ask to support news of my upcoming event. I have a book authoring event coming up in April, and I've asked all of those people, could they please mail for me, send a mail out to their communities and encourage people to come to that event. And then there's another category beyond that where, okay, that's a lot to ask somebody to do. So maybe I might just tell them about it. I might tell people in that third category, hey, by the way, I have an event coming up. If you're interested, here are the details. And always in all of these relationships, we're also saying, and what can I do for you? How can I support you? Because the research that's come out of all of the studies that have been done to this point, there haven't been a lot, but the studies that have been done on network marketing and referral marketing, we know that givers gain. And so aside from the fact that it's just the right thing to do, it's also in business, it's productive and lucrative to be giving to the people in your network as well.
But that doesn't seem to include your customers, though. That the list that you said sounded like more like personal friends or your family. But what about my list of customers who have purchased from my business before? I mean, you wouldn't.
That's a little, yeah. Sorry.
You wouldn't reach out to them and say, "Hey, can you help me out with?" Because they've paid you for whatever your service you've provided for them or product or something like that. The exchange is kind of done. I guess I'm thinking about marketing in terms of increased sales. Maybe that's where I'm missing something here.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I have some customers, clients who I would put in that number one category, who over the years we've built up a really strong, trusting relationship, and I know they support me fully, even though they're clients. But you're right. We're turning the prism just a little bit. We're not talking about refer a friend, for example, that you might consider a customer might get a benefit from you for referring a friend to your business. We're talking about people you actually have a relationship with. And those relationships develop over time. As we get to know each other, we feel where we're aligned, really from a values perspective. You would make a big ask of someone who you feel fully aligned with in terms of they value the same things that you value, but you might not make a very big ask of someone who's really not aligned with you. So that's the kind of thing that we're talking about.
Okay.
Did that clarify?
Yeah, I think so. We've got about 2 minutes, and I wanted to just ask one other question, and then we're going to have to wrap it up. Do you think, we were talking about relationships and interpersonal relationships, do you think that technology and social media has made personal relationships more impersonal than back in the old days when people actually met each other more often and met face to face? I mean, I'm just thinking about dating, online dating as an example. Back in those days, you had to meet people if you wanted to check them out for a potential date. Now everybody goes through an app.
Yeah, that's a really, really interesting question. I met the fellow that I'm currently seeing on a dating app. And you know what? Didn't it turn out he knows my sister, he knows my brother-in-law, he has a lot of the same activities, they belong to the same clubs. Like it's actually a smaller world than one would think. And I was really reassured to know that he knew people I knew, because then I could ask a few more questions, right? What do you think of this guy? And so I think to some extent, yes, it has really made things a lot more impersonal. But I think our world generally has become more isolated. And certainly this year and last year has been a really isolating experience for a lot of time. And we really crave connection with real people. And so we will need to do whatever we need to do in order to develop relationships. They're the bedrock of a community. And much as I have some wonderful, I have a wonderful community online, and there's some wonderful people in there. I don't get to see them very often because of COVID this year, but also because we're a long way away. We're continents apart quite often. So I think there has been a depersonalization to some extent, but I think the human animal is very, very creative. And I think we will find ways to connect regardless of the technology or not. It has actually been a facilitative tool in a lot of ways.
Well,
so that's a bit of a wishy-washy answer. I think I'm not. I think I see both sides of the coin on that one. I think it's good, and I think it's bad, and I think it's up to us to make the best of it.
I think you're right. I think it's a double-edged sword because on the one hand, your reach on social media and online is unlimited to how many people could potentially see what it is that you're broadcasting or you're selling or you're promoting. On the other hand, I think I've got about 5,000 quote unquote friends on Facebook, and I could name on one hand how many of them I've actually met. So, the other 4,995 people, I don't know, other than just from a profile. It would be nearly impossible to meet all those people in person. So I think it is good in that sense, but it's also, I don't know, maybe the quality of the relationship suffers somewhat. We could kind of go on and on with this, yeah.
Yeah. Going back to my earlier comment too, Douglas, is that I don't think we've been taught how to create a community, how to create a social network that's actually social. And it's really, our relationships are something that need to be cultivated. We can't just assume that because we have 5,000 people who are connected to us on Facebook, we've got 5,000 friends. That's just not real. But the people that we do care about, the social media and the digital framework allows us to connect more deeply with people. But we have to take the initiative and do that, which again is not always a priority for people.
We do have to wrap this up. Unfortunately, we are out of time. Do you have a website that you want to give out?
Oh, yes, I do. Thank you for asking. I'd love it if anybody wants to find out more about what I do. If you want to visit awakeningauthor.com. That's where you'll find out about all of the activities and fun stuff that I'm up to in the book world.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. This was a lot of fun. And best of luck with everything you're doing.